At approximately the same period as Bhagavad Gita, the humanity had experienced the phenomenon of so-called Axial Age. The very term Axial Age was scientifically introduced by Karl Jaspers, the famous historian, the psychologist and psychotherapist of the 20th century. He just noted that all most interesting things in the history of humanity had happened about 2.5 till 2000 years from now. It's not that all very important things happened then, but some very interesting things did. Note that all the greatest world religions had appeared at that time. Christianity, Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, all of this had appeared back then. The classical Greek philosophy, the milestone of European culture, it was then. The Roman law was also at approximately that time. Now it's hard to find any idea which wouldn't have its roots in that period. And what is more interesting, it happened simultaneously all over the world. It was in Greece, it was in India, it was in China. At that period Confucius and Lao Tzu lived in China. In India, Buddha and Mahavira lived in that time, and Socrates was in Greece, so it was a good time. I suspect that now it's a similar one, but we just haven't realized it yet. It would be realized only later. But truly it was a qualitative change of everything in India. The academician Smirnov had described that situation in India as a situation of some unstable Brahmanic-Kshatriya opposition. The system was unstable because Kshatriya were the ruling caste and the Brahmans were the higher caste. Moreover, some traditional aspects had outlived their usefulness. So in this period, powerful reformers had appeared. And note that all these reformers were from Kshatriya caste. Krishna was Kshatriya, although being a god. And Arjuna was Kshatriya also. And the styles of yoga proclaimed by Krishna in later traditions are treated as Kshatriya yogas, in contrast with Brahmanic yoga or Shaivist yoga, which parts are Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Buddha and Mahavira, the founders of two greatest religions of that time, were also Kshatriyas. Buddha was a prince. There are doubts about Mahavira, but their biographies are similar. Scientists consider them to be one person for a long time. Now, when the new texts are discovered, it's proven that these are the different personalities. So to the left we see Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, and to the right the Mahavira, the founder of Jainism. But the teachings they proclaimed were incredibly similar, while their historic destiny was completely different. The Buddha's teaching shined like a supernova. It swamped India and it existed in India for about 1200 years, up till 7th century AD, when its presence started dramatically declining. And in 10th century AD, there were almost no Buddhism in India. However, from India, the Buddhism had spread across all over the Southeast Asia. The Mahavira's teaching hadn't sparkled that brightly. It quietly had existed all these 1200 years, but it hasn't extinguished when the Buddhism had left India. It continued its existence. Well, it's interesting to see how the nature sows with excess. In Sarnath in India there is a deer park, which is the place of the first preaching of Buddha. King Ashoka had built a huge Buddha mortar there afterwards, which is reconstructed and is still there. When traveling India, we usually visit this place. It's very energetic and linked to Buddhism closely. I will mention Sarnath later. And on the territory of this park there is a small piece of land, which is the Jainist temple. Well, it's small on the Indian scale. Because you know, if one will not sprout, then the other will. And truly, there are much more Jains in India than there are Buddhists now. It's one of the most influential and the richest communities, and that's because of their religious restrictions. While Buddha made stress on Madhya Marga, the middle way, the ability to avoid the extremes, Mahavira stressed ahimsa, the non-violence, not hurting one. And all the ways of activity which could somehow hurt the living beings are prohibited to Jains, such as agriculture, military service, and lots of the others. So what could be left? The banking business is left. It definitely hurts no one. So the substantial value of all the Indian gold is concentrated in the Jain banks. And all the richest people in India, except for one even more specific community, are Jains. But Mahavira himself owned nothing, even he didn't use clothes. That's a paradox. So these are the amusing destinies of the teachings. Both inside Buddhism and Jainism, yogas were formed. Or, speaking more precisely, the yoga teaching had employed some ideological interpretations of both Buddhism and Jainism. But we don't have enough time to discuss Buddhist and Jainist yoga in this lecture. It would require dozens of hours. So we would just mention the phenomenon of Buddha and Mahavira in the Axial Age.